welcome. Very nice to see you all. I wanted to tell you a bit about the things that are on the top on the right, the application architecture that we are actually thinking of, the vision of it. The current problems that we have with our workflow, or the problems with our current workflow, maybe. The radio archive, I want to give you a live demonstration of an offline version. Metadatabank, that we call it. You called it the digital record repository, which is our vision. Why do we do it? What have we done? And what is the universe that you as a supplier are going to be working in? So just please don't hesitate to ask questions if you got them on the way. This is the same picture as we saw before, but now with all the text. You see that we have this top layer with the user interfaces. We did some work there. In the lower layer, the lower side here, we have some production systems, the planning, newsroom, music, stills, and so on. They have their own search functionalities. We actually said, okay, there is a lot of stuff going on here. What can we start with to actually implement our new vision? And then we said, we start with this radio archive. So the radio archive is a system which takes as input several source systems, so like planning systems, playout systems, metadata that comes from these systems is going into the radio archive. So it's collecting metadata from different places, and it's putting it forward through the workflow downstream to the public. So the main thing with this radio archive is that we tested this hub functionality for metadata. What we want to do, what we didn't do yet, what we want to do is extending this to other areas. Now it's only radio content. I will show you so you get the feeling for that. We want to extend this idea. So we actually put much focus in this project, this radio archive project. We could have done that much faster than we did because we used so much time in finding the right platform, making and abstract the software so that we could reuse it, making a good reusable stack of it. So we did decent software development on it. We use virtualized machines, of course. So we have a production park with virtualized machines. Just to give you some examples, in the software development, we use Docker instances so that we could roll out production systems and test them in different environments. And we do a lot of stuff in a very modern way. And we also have very much emphasis on flexible data models in the bottom. And I will tell you a bit more about that. So this is basically back to the picture that we had before. And what we also see in the radio archive, I mean, this is in the bottom, so you don't really need the user interface because they're in the top, aren't they? So in the radio archive, we said, yeah, we need, because we actually collect sources from different source systems as a source material, we need some kind of an administrative GUI for our journalists internally to actually be able to find and edit metadata that is now combined from different systems and improve it. So we made the front end here, front end server with design, and we did actually a decent job there as well. So we had our own front end team making the graphic design, the user experience, building components out of that, completely independent of this radio archive. So we have a search box as our own component, we have a result listing as our own component, calendar widgets, banners, all that stuff that you want to use in typical systems. And they're available from this radio archive stack now. So it is not radio archive specific, like I said, so we have reused it in the top layer now. And there are already 5 different systems in NRK that are using it. So we are actually doing this job quite rigorously. If you come to the workflow, some of you have seen this because I took it with me to the NAB this year, the NAB. This is the workflow that we have in NRK from start to end, and it also visualized that assets are actually reused. So the first part is the planning, acquirement, and uploading of material. This is we use what's on, for example, on the planning side. We have different acquirement methods. We can buy things, we can make our own recordings, we can do stuff, and we upload it. From there, you go to the part where you come in, because then you upload it to our systems internally, and then you go to this production phase, which is actually several different steps with different software components in the bottom. We're not interested in making these components at all, so that is the part that we are discussing with you. We are open for input, but there is one thing that is important here. At current, we first archive things when they're ready, and then we create metadata. That is not very good because it's too late. I mean, there's a lot of knowledge gone. So what we want to do is that every metadata item that we need later on in the process that is created somewhere in this production process or even in the planning should actually be stored as early as possible in this metadata ring that you see, this black ring. So as early as possible, we want to have this metadata. That means that you must be able to actually communicate with this metadata layer. So we make our APIs, both RESTful and query-based APIs that you can use for that. I will show you some examples later, so you can see how this looks in reality. But the whole idea is that the metadata is done much earlier by the people that actually create it. So you're sitting with your source system, you create something, you put it in there, and it's automatically forwarded to this metadata layer. You will also see that in the radio archive. So we actually got metadata post records in the radio archive before we got sound files, because we're still there. We already had metadata. The sound file after broadcasting is coming later, and we put them together later on. So we are quite flexible in that sense as well. So then we go to linear playout and streaming. That's the current situation in most countries, I think. NRK does a lot of this, both linear radio and television, but also streaming to the net. But what we have a problem with, that is this metadata layer. We do have control over storing assets. So we do have good system for storing all our assets. We don't lose them, that's okay. But what we have a problem with is the metadata based on all the production and to all these assets. It is spread all over systems. We got between 40 and 100 systems that actually have their own metadata models, their own metadata search functionalities, their own. It's all from an Excel arc on a local machine to a big Oracle installation in this program bank. So we have a large variety of metadata through the whole system. And as you know, Norway is large. We have very many different district offices and places where metadata can be stored. What we want to do is make a virtual ring, also actually a virtual layer of access to all this metadata. And it's not going to be a data warehouse. I mean, we've been there. It's not going to be that. We want to have a distributed model, but we need a way of modeling this that actually allows it. And these ways exist. I mean, they exist. Just go on the web and look at these large portal sites that do this kind of tricks. They exist. We're going to have to improve reuse. It's called gjenfinning in Norwegian, and gjenbruk, which is, gjenfinning is finding back, and gjenbruk is reuse. So we want to be able to find back our stuff without a large, extensive process. We want to be able to reuse it very swiftly. At current, it's not that. I mean, at current, if you want to reuse some radio material, it takes you a lot of time, and often more than 1 or 2 hours to actually be able to reuse if you want to be sure that you find the stuff that you really need and not just take the first result you get from some search interface. So what do we have? What is the change factor here? What is the driver? It is the on-demand services that Eric spoke about and social media. We have this new media department making very cool stuff for the public. Unfortunately, our production line, so everything before this, is not really good enough to serve these guys. So what do? They just go directly to the persons working with whatever. I mean, Digas, Watson, whatever they need. They just go to the person that owns the system and say, can I just? So they make a kind of a spaghetti bowl with code. So if we now switch off one of these components in production, we don't know what happens. We don't know which services down there are going down. And that's what we want to improve by actually making this metadata layer and make this metadata layer available in several ways, with subscription, with query interfaces, with RESTful interfaces, to the social media and on-demand guys, so that they can make their own services and actually trust that the production process delivers what's there. So we want to know everything about every asset. Then We have this metadata that we analyzed. We have 3 types of metadata in NRK. You can probably split it up even more. But the top level is 3 parts. The technical, coming from cameras, codecs, everything you do with a movie or a sound file or an image file. In an image file, it's typical this EXIF data getting from the camera. That's technical. We got the administrative stuff, which is the owner rights, so who owns this thing, and the production rights, so the publication rights, sorry. So are we allowed to publish it now? Are we allowed to publish it twice this year or 3 times? So what's going on? What can we do? And the meaning with that, I mean, getting this into the whole life cycle management of an asset is that we can serve these guys automatically, so that they automatically can decide what they are allowed to publish or not. And that is really a problem today. I mean, these contract modules that you have in different software, using them in an automated way to cover this kind of scenarios, it's not trivial at the moment. We want to improve that. We don't have the final answers, but we see a way. Then we have the left one is the redactional, social metadata. It is who is editorial metadata. Thank you. My Dutch English is not always as good as well. Editorial metadata is like who is on this image, who is interviewed, where, which place, which event, how is this hooked up into other editorial object structures. So there's a lot of metadata there that we actually don't have control over at the moment. So how do we want to do that with this metadata ring? How do we want to put all these 40 to 100 different metadata sources together? One of the things that we see is going to play a major role is this authority registers that Eirik mentioned. So we already made some in NRK. We have a weather service with 10 million place names in the whole world on a very good granularity. We made a service for that one, which is resolvable through REST API, so you can just throw it an identifier, an HTTP-based identifier in URI. You throw it to this web service and you get a description of this place with longitude, latitude, location, different, how do you call it? Different languages. You get it in, Norway has 3 official languages, so you can resolve this place to the interface that you need it to. So you get Karasjok in English, in Norwegian, in Bokmål, in Samish. So you get a lot of information about this place, but the identifier is most important. All the metadata around we can resolve later on as well. We want your systems to be able to keep these identifiers. So if you plan some new interview, and it will be at the Stortinget with Erna Solberg, the Prime Minister, it will be tagged in planning with Stortinget. That's where we're going to do this interview. And that ID has to follow through the whole loop. So you have to be able to capture this kind of things. And we will have them for places, we will have them for events, and we will have them for persons, and we will have them for roles persons can have. So you can have a person that is Prime Minister, but he can be in the role of a guest, or he can be a program leader, or he can be even do the technical regie. I mean, we don't know. I mean, you can have these roles. We have a good authority register on that in NRK, and it makes our work much more easy. I will show you why later on. But not later on, I will show it now. So this is the radio archive. It is a local one on my laptop. We have it here on the intranet. I can do a presentation of that as well, but we don't have the internet connection here to the intranet. So I will just show it offline. This is the start page with a single search box. And this is also very interesting because I know you, I mean, I've been there myself. You have been through very, very interesting discussions with customers like, no, I need this box as well, and I must be able to search Boolean, and I must do and, or, and not, and I must be able to do it. And you get a granularity. We have interfaces with 5 different pages and 1 page per metadata type, and up to 37 or 38 different boxes which you can fill out or not. And there is a lot of complexity in that. What we see in praxis, if we now in NRK go down in the archive department, I mean, 50% of the archive department is not employed here anymore, so from 120 to 60 persons. So they don't have time to do these things anymore. So journalists are required to do things themselves. They have iPads and iPhones. They're not used to 37 boxes with AND and OR and Boolean search. I mean, they don't know what it is. So we made this box, and you can just search. It is based on Elasticsearch, so the functionality is quite good documented. It's quite easy. This is just one service that we put on top of the metadata layer, and you get some results. It's that easy. I mean, you can drill down. What we do with these advanced scenarios, there are always people that want advanced scenarios. We'll just put it on the command line, because that's what they use today. They have systems called SIFT and so on, command line search interfaces. So it's a kind of query syntax like librarians and archivists are very used to. And we just use that system for them. So it will be in the same box, and they can just write their queries as good as they and as accurate as they want. But the journalists can just use it as a Google box. And that works very well. There was a big applause when they saw that. So then you go to a single record. This world on Saturday. You see in the left-hand corner, it is a broadcast. It has been on NRK P2. Sent on this date with the length and all that thing. There's an ID, it's a GUID, so this is uniquely identifiable. You can throw this identifier to our services and you will get exactly this metadata post till all times. And we have a description, we have tags, we have all the item lists, we have all these contributors with the roles and the names. And here you see this funny thing because you have a person, which is then uniquely identifiable. So we have an identifier for this person, so we know that this name is one person and we don't confuse it with another person with the same name. And we can search, if you now click it here, we have implemented it like that you search on Kjetil Selvik as an interview object, so as a person that is interviewed. And this is very interesting for journalists because if they click on this, they see that, oh yeah, there's only one program on my laptop. But say it's only one program where this guy comes up, okay, then we can reuse him because he's not overused. But other people can be like used 250 times in 150 days. This is very simple functionality. You've seen this many times before. Journalists, they don't have this kind of tools. Why not? I mean, it's so easy. And they love it, and they use it. So that is the kind of stuff that we want to develop. And I mean, we don't really need to do it ourselves. I mean, everybody can do it on top of our backend. But we have this item lists that we collected from Watson and from Digas with all the items. I can make it a bit bigger so that it's a bit more viewable. So you get every item with time slots and all the metadata. You get a play button if there is a sound file available. So you can play. You can also say, okay, this is the one I want to reuse. So you just click on it and it says, would you like to send this clip with the name to Digas, which is our production system for playout and radio programs. You can change the file name if you want to call it something else, and then you click send, and it's going to be automatically transcoded and sent over there, or clipped in this kind. So this is like 10 seconds instead of this 2 hours that they use now. So this is a completely different type of functionality. This is the kind of stuff that we want. So what you also can do here, you can have a look at the whole waveform. So you see the whole radio program. You can click on it. You can play here. It's synchronized in this interface with the stuff here, down here. So you see that it's this one here playing now. If I go to the other one, you will see it goes automatically. So it's correlated to each other. You can share the whole program if you wish. You can share the whole thing if you want to reuse the whole program. And you see also on the right-hand side, I'll just close the waveform for a while. On the right-hand side, you see different metadata. There's some production metadata. We have some dates, but we also have identifiers. And here you find all the unique identifiers that we get from all the source systems. So this one has a radio archive ID that we made. The radio archive makes a unique ID on every level. So the program level, the item level, but also the persons, like you saw, the roles, the events and the places. Everything has unique identifiers. There's a production code from Watson. We also have a Digas ID in some cases. It will be listed here. Everything we know of will be listed here and available for reuse later on. So if it's your own system that delivers, it will be here, and you can actually get back what the other systems deliver. So it's quite interesting. If we have several repetitions, rebroadcasts, they will be listed here. So you see how many times this has been rebroadcasted. If there is, what we have in Norway, it's called samsending, which is simultaneous broadcasting, the same program in different channels with different lengths and so on. We will have some information on that here as well. So you get most of the information that we have. And we're aiming at all, of course. And we have one interesting button here, and that is this little pencil. If you click on the pencil, you see something happening. The interesting thing that I have to tell first is that you are logged in as your own person. So all the 3,000 employees in NRK have a single sign-on to this system, so we know who is in there. And then you can say, okay, this program that we just heard, it's starting a bit earlier. So what we did is actually we padded all these sound files with 10 minutes in front and after. So you can actually reset index points directly in this interface. Okay, now this was not correct. I want it a bit more early. And then if you agree on that, it will just go to transcoding. We get new transcoded files in I think at the moment it's 9 different formats for all different types of users. And it will be here available in the archive as well. And all the downstream systems will get a message. If they are subscribed to the stream, they will get a message that there is a change here. You should do something if you publish this program on the net, or if you have this on your mobile service, or if you do whatever. You can change metadata here as well. You can just write something. The same here. You can take away people. You can put in people. You can change roles. We have this role register here. You can do the same for all these indexes. So if we have this thing that we just want to reuse, we can see if all the metadata is correct. There is some rights. There's a lot of more stuff than we have today on these items. The interesting thing is, like I said in the introduction, there is a flexible data model under it. It's graph-based, so we can extend this data model in the bottom. This is just what we chose to show in the GUI. And there might be more metadata here, but this is the metadata that we want people to be able to change. But we can add metadata here. If your source systems come with new metadata, it's no problem for us to put it in here and just, regard it as metadata as of today. So the same priority. So that was a bit on that part. I don't think I need to show so much more. Yeah, you can also change the index points of... You can also change, for example, this item. So if you say this item starts later, that was not correct and is finished earlier, then you can do the same thing. So it's the same kind of tricks there. So this is the radio archive functionality for this journalist. So the journalist can find things, change it. We have 3,000 employees that have been, most of them have been there for a long time, and they have been involved in stuff, and they actually see that this historical metadata is not good. Geir is our exponent. He always finds mistakes in the stuff that he did in the 80s and the 90s. So he can just go in and change it immediately. So we got a much, it's kind of crowdsourcing that we want to use internally with our internal employees. So then the next thing is, how are you going to use something like this? I mean, if you want to actually reuse part of the interface, for example, if you want to make a mobile or you want to integrate it in your own system, you can just resolve it with API. You get the JSON that we use to create this interface. So this is just JSON. That is just for the interface itself. You can use the Elasticsearch in the radio archive as well if you want to use that. So you can hook up to that one directly if you wish. But you can also collect the data model itself. And this is here, this is interesting because this is RDF-based, this is graph-based. Here you see unique identifiers for everything. You see use of ontologies. We use EBCCDM, we use EBCore. Where those are not good enough, we use either standard ones like Dublin Core or whatever we think is feasible there. And we have our own data model for the stuff that is really NRK specific if we find something like that. But we try not to find it. So this is the data that we put in, for example, a Sparkle endpoint or several Sparkle endpoints. This is the graph-based foundation for our metadata, which actually goes through the system here, through the internet, and which you can hook up to other similar graph-based representations. So we can hook this up to Wikipedia in a semantic format on the net, which is called dbpedia. We can hook it up to allmusic.com. We can use it hook it up to Freebase for the music, and get, for example, automatically biography and discographies and that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of scenarios, but we can also use it for reporting to the rights organizations in Norway. When was the music sent? Which music was it? We have unique identifiers. We can resolve it to composer, to artist, and whatever they want to have as a right organization. It's pretty easy to do that now. This is a completely different world. So that's that. And going back to the interface itself, like I said in the beginning, all the components are made as components. So, for example, this thing is a component, this is a component, the tags line is a component, this is a component with full functionality. It's documented, we have a good design guideline, we have style guides, everything of this is reusable. If you have a good normal front-end developer, it's developed with AngularJS and Java and so on, JavaScript, sorry. And then if you have a good developer, they will understand it immediately, and we have in-house expertise on this. So what we want to have is a unified look. So if you're able to use this kind of stuff, it's very good. Okay, so that was that part. Let me see where we go. Then we go to the architecture. This is the stack that we have for the radio archive. So you see this platform thinking. This is the platform that we want to extend. So content from different sources is coming in here. It is transcoded to this RDF TTL format. It goes into the radio archive data model. And there we have an event sourcing. So we know actually of every change that is made to this record post. So we have a basic post, which is in the bottom, which is always there. And we have all the changes on top of that. So we can also always go back to the place where we want to go if something goes wrong. We don't lose anything there. Then we have the top layer of this event stack, so all the change stack. The top layer is always published to the Elasticsearch search engine and to the RDF repository for reporting possibility. So we have always the latest state in these two bases. This goes to the front-end server, which then can use the Elasticsearch for search and can use this JSON REST API for actually building up this interface with posts that the human can see. So we got a user interface on top, which is component-based. So the front-end server has these little symbols. They symbolize these little components. So what we can do now, what we will do in August after summer recess, we will actually reuse the red parts. That is the backend mainly. That's what we are interested in. We will reuse that for the web video content. So we have this web video content, which is pretty similar to a radio program. I mean, it's a web video with index points, and index points have metadata. So it's very similar. So we want to reuse that and see how far we get here. I mean, we try to be as generic and abstract as possible. If we have done this once, we will not have problems hopping to the next slide, using it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we will use this for different containers. So where is the integration? The integration is on the metadata layer. We will have presumably distributed RDF repositories which are referring to each other, and you can resolve them through this metadata layer. So that's what we're working at now. So a bit about this information architecture and data model. I mean, like I said, we use ontologies. We use EB Core, EBCCDM. We are actively involved in these discussions. I mean, this is not a static model, but we try to be as static as possible. But since this technology allows flexibility in the data model, we are not too concerned about it. What we are concerned about, of course, is the versioning of it, but that's another thing. But we are working with this, and we're quite happy with this way of thinking. So here you try to model the broadcast domain in an abstract way through, for example, a thing like editorial object, which we used in the radio archive. And for me, an editorial object can be a radio program, but it can also be this web video clip, you know. So, and a lot of the metadata is exactly the same. So I don't really care which type it is of. But of course I know which type it is of, so if I need that information I can get it. But I can use my data model in an abstracted way. Why do we do this? We do this because we want to include all our metadata sources from within the company, but we also see an extensive need to actually cooperate with other broadcasters, both in Europe and other places. BBC, VRT, whatever broadcasters we have, where we actually have a reason to exchange and share both software but also content. But we also want to look into this for two reasons. It's this linked open data cloud. You've probably seen it. It is internet-based information sources that are already available in this format. So we can use them in the radio archive, and this stuff can actually be combined today. So if we want to combine information from DBpedia in the middle, which is the Wikipedia stuff, or the BBC program guide, BBC Music, BBC Wildlife, or we want to have something on geonames, the World Factbook, that we can use on our web pages, our journalists that are actually going to have an interview with an American artist that they don't know too much of, they can get a lot of information automatically out of this cloud here with sources. And since we use the same technology in the bottom, we can actually offer them this kind of scenarios. So we can integrate this in a new system or whatever. And that's what we're working on. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff. There's libraries, there is biology, medicine, there is a lot of, you know, like world fact stuff. There's a lot of data on Eurostat, what do you call that in English again? Census data. There is media, there is social portals like Flickr and Facebook. And just imagine, because we use this graph-based thinking, we have our own radio archive metadata in the bottom as a graph. But imagine Photoshop with all the layers. You make all the layers and then you switch on the layers you want to see, and then you export the product as the final product. That's what we want to do with metadata. So the basic state is the lowest layer in a Photoshop file. And then you can put this one on top of that, the parts that you need, as a separate layer. User feedback from social media on your programs can be an own layer. You can use it or not if you wish. Some kind of statistics, it can be an own layer. So you can just put layers on top of each other and just divine the views you need for your on-demand services. And that's the way we want to go. This is the thing we do today. It's an entity relationship model. Nothing against relational databases, but the problem is that they're local. And one of them in your system works very well. But we have like many of them in different systems, and these entity relationships models are not in any way connectable to each other. And that is because there is no authority registers that are used, so it's often a table with names of persons somewhere in the bottom in the periphery of your data model that is actually doing the job for your system very well. But it's not exporting anything, it's not importing anything, and that's what we want to improve. And that's why we say, in order to be more flexible, we want to go to this graph-based thinking. So the yellow one can be your system, the blue one can be NRK here in Marienlyst for television, the red one can be something on the internet. That's what we want to do. So we can pick the stuff that we need for our applications. That's where we go. At current, we have an interesting situation. I'll just give you an example on the metadata workflow at current. We actually want a TV series. We decided it's 2 seasons and that we have 8 episodes. So what happens today is we know this is planned, we have contract, everything is ready, and then we actually start to produce 8 episodes. But all the metadata that we had here on the top is just put on each and every file. So all of a sudden you don't have TV series with 2 seasons as a single uniquely piece of metadata. You got it 8 times. And that's error prone, because that means you can change it on 8 places. And you can potentially get 8 different versions of it. That is file-based production at its worst. That's not what you want. So what do we want? I mean, and it goes even further. Sorry, I wasn't finished. It goes even further. We plan this upper layer here. We throw it away. We go to production without it. And then once we are on the on-demand side, we need it again. So then we are either retrieving it if we got the possibility from one of the source systems, so we got quarreling with you about your APIs that are not existing or that are not good enough or we don't get it, or it's too expensive, or we have to manually recreate it. That's what we do today, for to be able to cover this part. So where do we want to go? We want to go something else. We want to do something else. We want to do storytelling. So say we decide that we want to make something new. We need a script writer writing the story. So we have a series called Mammon, a script for Mammon. And then we say, okay, with this script, we can make a television series. 2 seasons, 8 episodes, make the movies to it. We already store all the green parts in our metadata layer. So they're there, uniquely identifiable, unique instances of every piece of metadata. And then what happens is that in the future, we will also be able to actually get the script writer, either from DBpedia with some pictures from Wikimedia Commons, but we also have an interview with the script writer that we have on radio, for example, or on television, that we hook up to this. And then we go further, because now somebody thinks the script is really cool, and we have a lot of money for culture in Norway at the moment. So we make a theater play out of it, the same script as a theater play. We have an event, a theater event, with a place, the National Theater, and we have some interviews with the actors, on tape or on radio or on whatever. We have some pictures of the actors, and we see, for example, that one of the actors is also taking part in this television series. Now, if you have this universe, you get a story that you can tell to your users on the internet in a completely different way. And that's where we want to go. That's why we do this job with this metadata layer, and that's why we feel it's ours. We need to have control of this metadata, because we don't think single suppliers can do this on their own. We are the ones owning all these assets. We are the ones having to do this job on the green part with the metadata. And then in the other consequence, we of course want to hook it up to that as well. So either publish it or import it, or to do 2 ways, 1 way. That is the world we are living in. And that is what we try to prove with the radio archive, that we can do this. And we have this system. Geir called it a pilot system, but it is much more than that, because we use so much extra time to make it a real product now that we have a product which is going live soon. So this is already available as a production version for all the employees in NRK, so everybody can just use it. And there are many people that already start to use it. But it's complete on the metadata side, but it's not complete on the sound file side. We are not finished with the transcoding. We got some petabytes with files laying there that we have to transcode. So basically what we did with the radio archive is build a whole MEM stack for radio production and radio archive. But we don't want to repeat that for every system. So here is where you come in. We want to discuss how you feel about this, how you can contribute to this, how you can be part of this. We are very interested in not doing these things ourselves. But there's one thing that we want to do ourselves, and that is keep a bit control on this metadata on top. So either you have to leak it to us so that we can actually use it and extend it and integrate it. But here is something that we need to discuss. So what are the results? On the architecture side, we are able to integrate with production systems. We have a good quality assurance possibility now on metadata side. We can do reporting, like I said. We provide some administrative GUIs now, but we don't really need that. We are fully integratable with your systems if you wish. I've shown you how. There's probably more ways we can define as well. We're not interested in doing that job. So if you have a good system that does a production job and that needs this kind of backend functionality, we can discuss that. Integration, fine. We use quite new IT platforms and systems, so we do this virtualization, we use Docker instances, we roll out swiftly and fastly, and we can duplicate stacks. So we are our ecosystem is very modular at the moment. We take care of making modules that also you can have something of. And I think it is a very good thing for both of us. I mean, from our perspective, because we are able to make a larger ecosystem, include more than you can offer. From your perspective, because you are not in this discussion with employees that have very specific needs and you don't really know whether you have to fulfill them or not in the contract and having all this quarreling, because a lot of this stuff is already included in these components that we have. So you slip a lot of this nasty discussions as well. So I think it can be good for both of us. And we base it on principles of community building. So we talk together with all the people here in-house, and they are allowed to do a lot more than they could before. The first time I shown this radio archive pencil, which you can click on and then write for internal employees, it was, what? You know, like, is everybody going? You know, Yeah, everybody. So we'll see. I mean, we're just trying. We don't lose any changes, like I said, so we can reverse things. But we're just going to test this. We think it's better. We'll see. The data model is graph-based, object-based. Globally published authority registers is a keyword here. So you should be able to import and export them. We don't require you to use graph-based data models in your systems, but you should at least be able to understand them and interact with them, sorry. Metadata is updated by production and post-production systems, of course, and all metadata is available through this RESTful and query-based APIs, compatible with semantic web, and we use globally published ontology. So our data models are open, everybody can actually use them if they wish.